Welcome to Corporate Finance Explained, where we break down the essential topics every corporate finance professional needs to know. This series is narrated by AI, created using CFI's expert training materials, and designed to help you stay ahead in the world of finance. Enjoy this week's deep dive.
Okay, so let's unpack this. You ever wonder what really makes a company successful, long term, beyond just the cool products or services? Or maybe what makes a company that seems totally solid just completely fall apart, billions gone sometimes? Well, today we're doing a deep dive into something called corporate governance. Our mission really is to explore how this whole framework, the interplay between boards, executives, shareholders, how it's not just about compliance checklists, it's actually the bedrock, the foundation for a company's financial health, its performance, even its ability to survive a crisis. We've been looking at a bunch of sources, guides like corporate governance, boards, executives, and financial oversight, and another one on case studies, even pronunciations, which can be tricky.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating, I think, is how that relationship boards, execs, shareholders, it can literally steer a company toward huge success or, drive it straight off a cliff. It's this powerful force, often working behind the scenes, impacting, well, pretty much everything.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting for you listening. We're going to look at when it works, like really works, creates massive value. And yeah, we have to talk about some of those big famous blow-ups when it all went wrong, spectacularly wrong. And most importantly, what does all this mean for you, especially if you're working in or around finance? Okay, so let's kick off our deep dive. First things first, what is corporate governance exactly? It sounds a bit formal maybe, like something in a legal document, but I get the feeling it's much more dynamic than that.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just paperwork. Think of corporate governance as the operating system for a company. It's the whole structure for directing and controlling it.
Yeah.
And it's specifically designed to balance interests. Sometimes conflicting interests, actually. You've got shareholders, right, the owners, then management running the show day to day, but also customers, suppliers, regulators. It's about setting up clear rules for decision making, and this is key. Accountability. Who answers for what?
I like that operating system idea. And one source had a good analogy. It was like, yeah, you've got the board of directors, right? They're providing the high-level view, the oversight, setting the big strategy, putting up the guardrails, asking the tough questions, hopefully. And then you have the executives, the management team. They're the ones, on the ground, running the business day to day, steering within those guardrails. It's a critical balance, that division of roles. But I guess it only works if both sides are really doing their job properly.
Exactly. When that system clicks, when it works like it's supposed to, governance does its job. Protects shareholder value, makes sure money is used wisely, drives efficiency, responsible growth. But when that balance gets thrown off, when the system breaks down, well, that's when finance teams often find themselves cleaning up, frankly, enormous messes. And we're not talking small mistakes here. These can be existential threats to the company, huge impacts on investors, employees, everyone.
So yeah, forget the dusty binders. This is the engine room, isn't it? It's the live wiring that determines if a company actually manages its money well, if it thrives, or if it just clashes and burns. It really has tangible impacts. That makes sense. But let's get a bit more granular. How does this governance thing actually show up in the day-to-day financial oversight? Why should you, listening right now, really care about how these boards and executives are interacting?
Because it shapes basically every major financial decision. I mean, take risk management, that's a big one. A strong board, an effective one, they don't just nod things through, they insist on discipline. Discipline around leverage, how much debt the company takes on, how it manages its cash, its compliance with, complex rules and regulations. They're the brakes, in a way, making sure the company isn't speeding towards danger.
And if those brakes aren't there, if the board is weak or just not paying attention,
Well, that's when you see weak boards signing off on really aggressive, high-risk strategies, strategies that can dramatically increase the downside if things go wrong. It puts the company in a really precarious spot. Sometimes one from which it can't recover. It's like letting someone race a car without checking the brakes first.
yeah, not a recipe for success.
Yeah.
And what about M&A? Mergers and acquisitions. Are there specific governance red flags there we should look out for?
Oh, definitely. M&A is a huge area where governance matters. A board that's truly independent, with the right expertise, industry knowledge, financial acumen. They will challenge executives hard. They'll push back on valuations, ask tough questions about whether those promised synergies are actually real. They're looking for genuine value creation for the shareholders. But poor governance. That can lead to what they call empire building. Executives doing deals just to make the company bigger, maybe boost their own profile, even if it means overpaying massively for an acquisition that ultimately destroys value instead of creating it.
And those deals can be company defining, for better or worse. It's not small change.
Not at all. It's huge. And even, the really fundamental decisions about capital allocation. Should the company reinvest its profits back into the business? Should it pay dividends out to shareholders? Buy back its own stock? All those decisions are heavily influenced by the governance environment. A well-governed company ties those choices to long-term strategy, not short-term pressures or executive whims.
Wow. Okay, so it really is pervasive. It touches risk, M&A strategy, how cash is used. It runs through the entire financial system of a company.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, we have plenty of examples where things went badly wrong. History gives us some pretty stark cautionary tales where governance failures led to just, massive financial destruction. These aren't just stories in a textbook. They had real devastating consequences.
Yeah, you really can't talk about governance failures without mentioning Enron. That's Enron. I mean, the board there essentially allowed these incredibly complex, opaque financial structures, accounting practices that were, let's say, highly questionable. It hid the real state of the company. Executives were pushing this extreme financial engineering with almost zero transparency, and the result, catastrophic. The collapse wiped out something like $74 billion in shareholder value. Jobs, pensions, investments just vaporized. The scale of it is still kind of shocking.
$74 billion, it's hard to even comprehend. That kind of failure implies a total breakdown, doesn't it?
Complete breakdown. Then you have Theranos. Hey, our Unos. That's another famous one. The board there looked impressive on paper, right? Big names, established figures. But here's the thing. They lacked the specific medical or, crucially, deep financial expertise needed for that business. And because of that gap, they couldn't really provide effective oversight. They couldn't ask the right critical questions. So management misled investors, operated without real checks for years. Hundreds of millions in capital vanished. It really highlights that a board needs relevant expertise, not just, famous names.
That's such a key point. Relevant expertise.
Yeah.
A board of generalists might not cut it when you're dealing with complex tech or finance.
Exactly. And don't forget WeWork. The governance structure there gave far too much power, concentrated control in the hands of the founder, very little independent oversight. And that allowed for really risky spending, a sort of chaotic strategy, weak financial controls. It all went largely unchecked by the board. And we saw what happened. The valuation plummeted from, $47 billion down to under $10 million after that failed IPO attempt. Just shows how fast things unravel without proper checks and balances. Sometimes it feels like they were playing financial Jenga, hoping the tower wouldn't fall.
And then it did. Yeah. The lesson seems painfully clear from these examples. Without strong, watchful governance, even companies that seem to be flying high, loaded with capital, can just disintegrate.
Yeah.
Leaving behind a huge mess, not just for investors, but for employees, suppliers, the whole ecosystem.
And it raises a really important question for us, in finance roles. What is the real financial impact of having an ineffective board? It's not just the lost billions, so that's bad enough. It's the erosion of trust. It stifles smart risk-taking because people become afraid. It damages the company's reputation, maybe permanently. Makes it harder to raise money later. The ripple effects are just huge.
But it's not all doom and gloom, right? Governance isn't always about failure. When it's done well, it can actually be this incredible engine for resilience, for growth, for really strong financial results. Yeah. There are companies out there that really nail this, and we can learn from them too.
Absolutely. Take Unilever, for example. Their board consistently focuses on transparency. They have a really strong commitment to sustainability, which increasingly matters to investors and customers. And crucially, they work hard to align executive pay with long-term value creation, not just hitting next quarter's number, but building something sustainable. And you see it in their performance. Investors tend to reward that consistency, that stability, that trust with steady performance over time. It fosters this environment of predictable, ethical growth.
That's a fantastic example. The board setting the tone, embedding those values right into the financial strategy. It's not just an add-on.
Exactly. Or think about Microsoft. Remember when Satya Nadella came in and pivoted the whole company towards cloud computing? A huge shift. The board didn't just rubber stamp that strategy. They actively supported it. They tied their oversight, their capital allocation decisions directly to measurable results from that cloud transition. So in that case, governance wasn't a roadblock. It was an enabler. It actively supported this massive, incredibly successful transformation that basically redefined Microsoft. They didn't just okay the plan, they helped make it happen through financial discipline.
That's fascinating. So good governance can actually free up a company, allow it to innovate, to adapt, to take calculated strategic risks, because there's this strong, supportive, knowledgeable framework underneath it all. It's about smart risk-taking, not just, wild bets.
Okay, so this isn't just theoretical stuff happening way up in the boardroom. For those of us listening, maybe working in finance roles, what can we actually do? How can we help strengthen governance from where we sit? We're not just passive observers in this, are we? No, absolutely not. Finance teams are, I'd argue, central to making governance work. You're the custodians of the financial truth in many ways. There are probably 5 key best practices finance professionals can really champion. First, and maybe most obviously, transparency. Just ensuring that financial reporting is always accurate, it's timely, and importantly, it's understandable. Clarity is everything. It builds trust internally, externally.
Right. That's the foundation. Can't build anything solid on shaky numbers. But what about getting that info to the board effectively?
Good point. That leads to number 2, independent oversight. Actively support your board committees. Give them unbiased data. Give them insightful analysis. Your objective viewpoint is incredibly valuable. It helps them cut through any internal politics or biases. You're providing the unvarnished truth, basically. Third, ethical leadership. This is huge. You have to model integrity yourself in budgeting and planning and how capital gets allocated. Ethics really have to start within finance and spread out.
Yeah, leading by example, especially with the numbers, sends a powerful message throughout the whole organization. Sets the standard.
Definitely. Fourth is alignment of incentives. Finance often has input here. Advocate for compensation structures, bonus plans, stock options that genuinely reward long-term performance and sustainable growth. Not just hitting those short-term quarterly EPS targets, which frankly can encourage some really bad behavior sometimes. Think long-term value. And finally, number 5, active engagement. Don't just dump the numbers on the table. Explain them. Explain the assumptions behind them. Point out the potential risks. Maybe even present different scenarios or alternatives. Be a strategic partner, not just a scorekeeper. Help them make better decisions.
So yeah, definitely not just observers. Finance professionals are really central players in making governance effective, making it impactful, kind of like being the guardians of financial integrity, but also strategic clarity for the whole organization, helping steer the ship, really. All right, let's try and wrap this up. What's the big picture from our deep dive today?
Well, I think the contrast is pretty stark. Weak governance, it leads to disaster. We saw it with Enron, Theranos, WeWork, billions vanished, trust destroyed. It's a clear warning about unchecked power, lack of expertise, lack of transparency, but strong governance, like at Unilever or Microsoft. It's not just about avoiding failure. It's actually a powerful engine for transformation, for resilience, for creating real sustainable value for everyone involved.
And for you listening, especially if you work anywhere near the financial side of things.
Governance isn't just some background hum or corporate buzzword. It's not just a compliance thing. It's the absolute fundamental framework. It shapes every single decision about money, every risk assessment you do, every presentation you make to leadership or the board. It's like the invisible hand guiding the company's financial future, its health, its growth, its ability to even survive. Understanding this stuff, it's not optional anymore. It's essential if you're serious about finance.
Yeah, what really stands out to me is that governance seems less about just following rules and more about kind of the core values of a company, how it fundamentally views and manages its financial health, its future. It's a living thing.
Exactly. So whether you're, putting together board packs, modeling a potential acquisition, building risk models, remember, this isn't just about ticking boxes. It's about real financial stewardship. It's about ensuring the company lasts, grows responsibly, and protects the interests of everyone connected to it. It's about building something that endures.
So here's something to think about as you go about your week. In your own experience, maybe at your company or just watching companies you follow, how do you see that balance of power between the board and the executives actually playing out? And what are maybe some of those subtle or maybe not so subtle financial signs that things might be going right or perhaps going wrong? What hints are there that often get missed until it's way too late?
Thanks for listening to Corporate Finance Explained. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to check out more episodes and explore CFI's highly rated courses at corporatefinanceinstitute.com. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into essential finance topics. See you next time.